Hi, it's Kim Edwards here. It's Intro to 3D tutorial. So we're going to be doing some polygon modeling today, and we'll be making a character like this. Before we start, I thought I'd just go over some of the tools that we're going to use. So let's have a look. So look at this purple plane here. So we're going to be working mainly in this polygon menu here, polygon context menu, which has got these panels here, these three panels here, that has got most of the things they're going to be working with. So just a refresher, polygons are made up of verts, which are points, and edges, which connect those points, and then faces, which are drawn between the edges. So that's what we've got going on. Now, one of the main tools we're going to use is Extrude. We've done kind of extrude sort of operations with splines, with lofts, and you can extrude edges as well as faces. So we'll look at faces first of all. So just right click to get to face mode and click on a face, and then go to edit mesh and go to face and go to extrude, and then I get this little option box, so you can actually type in thickness, which will point out numbers. It'll pop up. Offset, which either expands the face in or out, so 1 would go in, -1 would go out, for example, and how many divisions it's going to add. As well as doing that, you can also alternatively pull and scale the extruded face. And if the face, for example, is pointing off the world axis, so for example like so, and I did another extrude, I could alternatively switch to world space by clicking on this power button and drag up. I think I've got snaps on and drag up, for example. So I can also extrude edges, so click on an edge, edit mesh, and click on extrude. Same kind of interface. And I can also, as well as doing that, extrude multiple edges and multiple faces. So if I double click here, I can go edit mesh, go to extrude, boom, 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 and drag out. And you can see at the moment it's not working how I want it to be. I could either use thickness, or I could click on the power button to go to the center of the object and scale it out that way if I wanted to go out like that. So that's your extrude tool, and you need to make sure that you've exited it by pressing Q, and keep an eye on not accidentally repeating it multiple times. A handy thing with polygon modeling is we do lower resolution cages, and then they get subdivided quite often, which is how we're going to model this character. And you can shortcut how it's going to get subdivided and smooth by pressing 3, which gives you what's called a smooth mesh preview. And so we can get organic kind of shapes and forms with that, even though we're working with a lower resolution cage. So it actually divides the mesh. If I click on here and go display subdivisions, it's actually divided the mesh into all these verts and faces, but I'm controlling all of those just with a low res kind of cage, which makes life nice and easy. Okay, so that's our main function that we're going to use, which is extrude. The other one we're going to use is insert edge loop. So an edge loop, if you double click on an edge, see how this edge is only intersected at any one point by another edge? That's a loop. So this is also a loop, and where it gets intersected by more than one edge, so at the tops of these cylinders, that terminates the loop. So quite often we want to put extra edges in, and the neatest tool to use to do that is over in Mesh Tools, and it's Insert Edge Loop tool. So if you look at the tool settings, you can either have relative distance from the edge, which is where you would pick a horizontal ladder and drag it up and down where you want it to be, Or if you want it to be exactly between faces, you can put multiple edge loops on. So if I put multiple edge loops 3 and clicked here with space, 3 loops evenly between these horizontal edges. So that's our insert edge loop tool. The other thing that we're going to use is we're going to be cutting faces to make holes for the arms and so forth. And we're going to use an average vertex command. So if I grab a face and delete it, in fact I'll delete a whole lot of these, and then I grab these verts here, you'll see the effect of it. So a bit like when I press 3, see how the 3 makes this kind of a little bit smoother. There is a command here, average vertices under mesh, which will relax these and make it almost circular. And we're going to use that when we cut holes, so we get a nice circular hole for our arms and so forth to pop out. So that's that. So that was under mesh, average vertices. The other main thing that we're going to use is move tools and so forth to negotiate moving things around. But if you have a look, if I was to wanting to move this edge left or right along this organic shape here, you can see that I'm losing the kind of curvy shape that already exists when I do that, because it's just moving along the world axes. So I've got a few things I can try. If I double click on the move tool, I can move according to normal's average, and the normal's average is going to average up this selection in terms of the directionality that I'm going to move, and that might help. But there's a handy tool called the slide edge tool that's really useful for moving things and trying to maintain the existing shape. So it basically constrains the movement to go along existing edges. So if I go here and go to, so let's say I wanted to move this edge a bit more that way, couldn't really do it. Can kind of, normal's average will do a reasonably good job, but the really money tool is to use the slide edge tool, which is under mesh tools, slide edge tool. And this works by, if you drag left and right, it will just slide along the existing direction of the existing edges. So it's a really handy tool to move things around and retain the kind of shape of the mesh. Those are the main tools that we're going to be working with. Awesome. Okay, we'll start off by bringing our reference in. So go create free image plane, select the plane, go to the attribute editor, and we'll load in yumyum.jpg. Yumyum is character design studio, does character designs. You can Google yumyum character design, and we're going to be modeling one of their characters. I'll scale this up, and I'll hold J to snap the scale. Go to the front view, and we're going to be lining up the nude gentleman roughly with the origin. Awesome. So what we'll do first of all is we'll make the arms and legs. And we're going to make these from cylinders, because you can see, as in our reference, we've essentially got cylindrical arms. You know, this design is really based on nice kind of primitive volumes in the character. So we'll start off with some cylinders. So we'll make one sort of master cylinder that we're going to copy for both the arms and the legs. Radius we'll make 0.3. Height we won't worry about so much, but the subdivisions we're going to set to being 8, which seems quite low, but it means that we can cut inside of our body shape. So just to clarify, that's 8 and a radius of 0.3, 8 subdivisions. It means if we cut in a shape, so I'll just make this into something a little bit. So if I cut into this, cut away 4 faces, that will leave me with 8 sides. So you can see up here, I've put on, which I suggest you do as well, under heads up display polygon count. It gives me a count when I select edges. It's saying this is 8 edges. So then I'd use the tool that we looked at before, average vertices, for example, to make a nice cylindrical hole. And that's something I can then extrude. So same tool we looked at before, the extrude edge. I'll just extrude it up a little bit. It's 1. And that's something I could then connect a cylinder, snap to a cylinder, and it'll work quite nicely. So that's the process we're going to be following. So with our cylinder that we've just created, I'll just go into the top view, and I'm going to delete, just drag face selection, drag through, delete the top and bottom. So this cylinder we're going to use for our arms and our legs. So I'll just put the pivot point. So handy little shortcut is if you press D from being in the move tool, you can edit the toggle in editing the pivot point. Press D, press V to snap to point, and just drag the pivot point to the base there. That means I can just move it onto the origin, and it's waiting for me. Okay, so we'll do a hand. So a hand we'll make from a plane. So let's make a plane. Jump into the top view to do this. I'll put in some loops for, have a look at our character. He's got a few fingers. Look at one of the other ones. I'm assuming that they've got 3 fingers and a thumb. So jump into the top view. Go to that Insert Edge Loop tool, go to Tool Settings, and number of edge loops we'll leave at being 2, and then we'll do 1 horizontal one, and that way we can pull a thumb out from there, and we can pull 3 fingers out from here. So now we'll do an extrude. So go to Edit Mesh, go to Extrude under Edges. And over in the attribute editor where it's put the extrude operation, I'll turn off keep faces together, and then I can just basically pull out the fingers, and I'll scale them a little bit on the x-axis, and that will give me the fingers separated. I'll do the same thing here for the thumb. I'll just press G, which repeats my last action, and I'll pull out the thumb, which I'll scale in a little bit and maybe rotate, just dragging, so we get a kind of thumb shape. So really simple, really simple. Maybe I'll pull this back a little bit. Okay, that's looking like a hand slightly. While I'm here, I'll put in some loops where you imagine the knuckles and so forth to be, so at least they can bend. So I might put in 2 loops. Yeah. Might need to put more in later, but just put 2 in there, 2 in there, and I think I'll just put 1 in the thumb at the moment. Q to exit that tool. Do a little bit more rotating on this. Great. So that's our hand. Before I pop it up, I may as well just project some UVs on that planar, the y-axis. So unfortunately with polygon modeling, you don't get UVs as you extrude things. It just doesn't happen. So kind of do UVs as you go. Alright, so this now means I've got 3 edges at the wrist, which if I extrude it, I'll get another 3 plus the side, which will equal 8 edges, which will fit a cylinder. Awesome. So that's the hand. Just do that while we're here. So I'll go to Edit Mesh and go to Extrude. And thickness I'll set to being 1. 1's too much, 0.5. Excellent. And doesn't look too crash hot. Delete those faces. Can even scale these 2 edges, like so. Could even try an average example. So I'm just using those same tools that we looked at before. Okay, and I'll snap this to our cylinder. shortly. If you press 3, you can see that we get, you know, a hand that's going to be sufficient for what we need for this character. So I'm going to make a copy of this cylinder we made before, just Control D, and move it across, and we'll line things up. Just rotate it this way around, so it's most logical. And I just move the pivot point, holding D to toggle the pivot point again. Snap to grid is X, if you've forgotten. It's just using move tool. W is move, E is rotate, R is scale. Right, and I'll move the pivot point to say there, scale it down, and then I want to line these things up. So you can see I'm going to need to think about where I might rotate my hand around this way, makes most sense to me, and then I have to have it rotated slightly on an angle to line up with the edges on my cylinder. So I just want to line this up a little bit more. So I'm going to set my move axis to object. Because I've rotated the object, you can see its rotation is that way. And this will allow me to kind of line this up a little bit better with the existing cylinder. Not that it matters too much, but it should be ballpark the same. So at the moment these are two separate meshes. So there's two things that you need to do in Maya to join them together. Is I need to say that they're one object, so say mesh combine, and then the individual verts I need to then merge together. So I'll grab the two objects and I'll go to mesh combine, and this now treats this as a single mesh. You can see it's actually moved the origin over there. Just press D and move it back over to where we probably want it. And then, at the moment though, these are still separate pieces, and I don't want that. I want them to be one piece. Pressing 3 to see the smooth mesh preview. So now it's a question of just snapping the verts together and asking Maya to merge the two together. So I'll do another little handy trick. I'll just go symmetry and do it by object, which should mean if I grab a point on one side of the object, on the x-axis, it should find it on the other side. You can see that it hasn't. So we'll have to just do each point, unfortunately. Alright, so just moving and snapping, move, snap. I'll just pause it while I go through and do that. Okay, I just finished snapping them all together. Now they're still separate pieces, so if I grabbed one face and moved it, you can see they're not sort of treated as being joined. The next thing I need to do is just say that I want those different parts to be joined. So I'll just drag a marquee selection over the whole lot. And go to Edit Mesh, Merge Components. Probably best to reset your settings. That should be enough of a threshold. I can see I've got 16 vert selected, and if I click Apply, I've got 8 now, so I know it's worked. Awesome. You can see that it's worked. And you'll see now when I press 3 for a smooth mesh preview, things are all looking good. So we can fiddle around with the hand and get the shape a little bit more how we want it. But just for the moment, I think we'll consider that done. Alright, so that's our arm, which will move across the way. Okay, so we'll progress to the foot now. So our other cylinder that we've got left over, we are going to put a loop in. So we're going to use the Insert Edge Loop tool, relative, drag that down to here. I'm going to put another one right next to it. Then I'm going to extrude some faces. So grab these faces here, edit mesh, extrude, click on the little power button to change the axes, drag it out a little bit, and then grab these verts, make it taper down a little bit, missed one, and then I want to make this all a little bit flatter, so I'm just going to pull these out so there's less of an angle here. So I'm going to get toes out of this. Pull these two edges out. I'll move that out. So I'm just doing a kind of semi-editing a little bit. Now I'm just going to make a big toe shape and then drag this one across. So these are spread a bit more tightly. Okay, 3 toes, 1 big toe. So I go into faces now, go to edit mesh, and we'll do some extruding. And a bit like the hand this time, we'll go to the attribute editor and turn off keep faces together. Let's pull these out. And scale them locally on the x-axis a little bit. Not too much, just a little smidgen. And then Q to exit the tool. Drag these down a little bit. Alright, I'll press 3 now. Have a look. Okay. Not quite stubby enough on the edges here, so we'll throw some more edges in. So we'll go insert edge loop tool and stubby them up. It's probably too close. We don't want them to be square. So I'll just go back one and do it a little bit further away. Jump. Jump. This one is a toe, so it's going to be reasonably stubby. Alright, and for this kind of character, I think this is going to be pretty sufficient. We'll just make this one a little bit wider. Awesome. So now I'm going to fill this hole down here. So if you double click on a border edge, it'll select it, and then I go to mesh, go to fill hole, and then I've just got this funny shaped hole here which will smooth in a strange way. You can see that sort of triangle. So I just need to turn this into 4-sided faces. I'm going to join, create an edge between there and there, and an edge between there and there. I'm going to use this tool under mesh tools, which we haven't looked at, called the multi-cut tool. So it'll join between edges or what have you, and I'm going to go a connection between that and there. So I click once, go to there. When you're happy, you press enter. Do the same thing this way around. Happy, press enter, and then Q to exit the tool. So now when I smooth that, it's a bit more happy. So that's our foot. Awesome. So we've got a foot and a hand, and now we'll look at making the body and joining them together. Awesome. Okay, so let's have a look at the body. So I'll jump into the front view now, and we can see it's kind of a cylindery shape, but I'm going to just use a Bezier curve, and we'll revolve that to get his kind of shape. So go over to curves menu, click on the Bezier curve which we used before, do some clicking, dragging, and cool. Do some editing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pull this one out a little bit. Pull this one out instead. Awesome. I'd like this to be a fairly straight connection. Okay. Brilliant. Then we use revolve from the surfaces menu. which we've used before for the pair. So we'll revolve, and reset your settings. So we want 8 segments is fine. Polygons, doing it on the y-axis. We want it to be general fit per span, number of isoparam parameters, and I think I want 6 and 3 from memory. Bear with me. Yeah, I think that should work. So revolve that. I forgot to do one setting, which was to say we want it to be quads. Awesome. So that, if I click on here, this is cool little X-ray mode. Lets me see through. So I don't think there's quite a symmetrical render, so that's fine. So this looks like it lines up pretty well. I'll delete the history now. Get rid of this extra edge here. So again, I'll just refresh. If I just deleted this now, it'll leave verts behind. So if I just press delete, go to vert mode, you can see the leftovers there. So you need to get in the habit of, if you're doing a full delete, to press Control Delete and it'll get rid of both. There are some circumstances where you want to leave the verts there, so that's why. Scale this in a little bit, looks a little bit sharp. So that's why that feature is there, but arguably not used that much. Just going to the top view, make sure we've got a center edge, which we do, because we're going to mirror this in the end. And then we'll get busy with it. So let's have a look. So we want to pull out an arm section. So I'm just going to go into the front view and make sure that we've got some edges corresponding to that. So I'm just going to add in back into the polygons menu another loop. Because if you remember, where we delete 4 faces, we'll get it. It'll match with our 8-sided cylinders for our arms and our legs. So I'm just going to go to Mesh Tools and insert another loop. So I'll just say multiple 1. That should be approximately where we want to get the arm out of. Maybe not quite. I might move this one up a little bit. So I'll use that slide edge tool that we looked at in the intro. Move this one up a bit more. Move this one up a little bit more. Cool. Right, so these 4 faces, I believe, should be the ones that we want. Yep, so I'm going to delete them. While I'm there, I'll also look at where we're going to do the leg. So I'm going to have a stab in the dark and say it's probably going to be these 4. Should I go into X-ray mode? I should be able to kind of make out. Yeah, that's ballpark in the right region. So I'll delete them as well. Right, then we'll average those holes using the average vertices to make them a little bit more circular. So double click, mesh, average vertices, G. So G repeats the last action. G. It's being a bit too big when I do that. Might extrude this one first. And did that one go in too much? Maybe it did. We'll do the averaging after we've extruded them. So we just need to extrude little stumps for them first. So just go to Edit Mesh. And edge, extrude, and just a little bit. So 1's too much. So 0.25 will do the trick. Excellent. Okay, so look at this one first. Scale this back in a little bit. Alright, and then this one, oops, this one, let's double click my edges, go to the front view, have another look. So this one I could probably scale in a little bit. So we're going to have the arms popping out horizontally first of all. Alright, so now we'll do some joining of the dots. So I'm going to rotate my hand, arm, jump, 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 and just use V to snap things together. This across a bit. Okay, it's pretty good. Arguably a bit too thick. Okay, it's a bit too thick, I'll scale it down. Sound effects help. Move this back. It'll be reasonably long. If you point back along. Alright, that should be a reasonable connection there. Same thing with the leg. Okay, that needs to be scaled down. The front view. So, to be a bit of interpretation here in terms of marrying with my reference. Okay. Alright, and then what we'll do is we'll merge these meshes together. So just grab all of them, mesh, combine, and then we'll snap. Go here, go to the move tool, see if our symmetry will work on Z axis maybe. I think it's going to. No, it's not going to work. It's not quite symmetrical. So we're just snapping these to join to our limbs, probably in 6 just to move. Click, click, drag, hopefully. I'll pause while I do that. Okay, that's that part done. Do the same thing up here. So just holding V to snap to verts. I think symmetry will work on this section. Finally. Just say on world on the Z axis. Hooray! So it'll save me from doing all of them. Doesn't look like this is quite gonna work, which is a pity. Pause again. Okay, that's those all lined up. So now we'll do some merge. So go mesh and go to ask it to merge the actual edges and verts together. So it's back to 8 from 16. So 16 here, mesh, merge components. And then we'll have a look at what that looks like smoothed. And it's not too bad. Okay. Look at our reference. Alright, it's not too bad. So we might probably want to have this bulge out a little bit more, just around the sides here. Might try an average. Might try just slide edge tool. Let's have that pull out a little bit that way. A little bit that way. Feels better to me. So that's the limbs joined. Awesome. Alright, here we are again. So let's look at doing the mouth. So go to the front view, X-ray mode. I've got an edge there that will act as my bottom lip. I'll put another one in the top. I'll give it a little bit of space. Good-o. And I'm going to get rid of these 4 faces eventually. Just pull these 2 edges up a little bit to make kind of smile, subtle smile shape. Right, extrude these in. Edit mesh, face, and go to extrude. I'll probably do that from perspective view. Turn the X-ray off for a second. So edit mesh, extrude, thickness, let's say 0.25 the other way, minus 0.025. That'll do. So that'll just form the lips. And actually before I do that, I'm going to offset this a little bit. Let's go minus 0.025. Oh, 0.025. There we go. That's better. Alright, and now I'm going to extrude this. I just press G to do it again. So I'll go minus 0.25, 0.025. Minus 0.025. Yep. And then we'll do one more. I'll go just drag it back on the Z-axis. It's going to be kind of the sock for the mouth. Then I can go and grab these top edges and form the palette. So if I press 3 now, you'll see it's making a kind of mouth-shaped hole. A smiley mouth-shaped hole, which is exactly what we want. Brilliant. So that's pretty much it. We can put nipples on. Obviously, probably best for them to be a separate mesh. So the way that I could do that is I could snap a cylinder to here, or I could, for example, so to make the nipple, for example, we can use the handy make live feature. So this little button here, which means that when we create objects and stuff, it'll snap to, or make Bezier curves, what have you, it'll snap to the surface that's live. So with that in mind, I've got to create polygon primitives and turn interactive creation on. I normally have it off, so everything's made at the origin. And then I'll click on cylinder, go to the front view, X-ray mode, so I can see where I should be putting my nipple, and drag out, and that will make the initial shape, and drag again, and there's my nipple in the right spot. And then I'll just pull, double click on this edge here, scale that in a little bit, and that to be a little bit smaller. Good-o. Jump back out. Okay. I'll delete the back face, which we won't be seeing, or we won't be needing. So I just clicked on the central vertex and then control right click to convert selection, in this case to faces. Press delete. And control right click, go to faces, and I'll extrude the central nipple a little bit out. Ooh, not snapping, just out a little bit, scale it in a little bit from the origin of the object, and that should do the trick. So that will be my nipple. So I'll turn off make live, get out of X-ray mode, and that is a nipple. So I don't think we'll take any kind of... Okay, let's have a look at doing some glasses now. So I'm just going to go back to my simple way of making things. So I'll turn off interactive creation off. Click on create a polygon plane. I have that off. Yep. Click. Excellent. Alright, just make it 2 by 2 so it conforms with the grid. And then I want to put some loops in. So we will go to Insert Edge Loop tool, and I'm going to say go 3, 2 that way, 2 that way, and then we will just do some lovely scaling where they go that way. And some snapping, and then it's probably going to be right. And then when I've got 2 of these, so I'll just just my pivot point, snap that across. So then when I've got 2 of these, so I'll just duplicate. I move the pivot point back over to here. I'll combine the meshes, and then I'm going to use another feature here, select these 2 edges, and go to Edit Mesh and go to Bridge, which will join, create a face joining the 2 together. So if you go to Mesh Tools, Bridge Tool, I was going to have a look at the tool settings, but it's done a good job anyway. So that's joined together. I can't see some side ones, we can put them on fairly easily, and if needed be, these inside faces could be given a different material really easily, and that will be the 3D glasses. All that remains now is to put the pivot point somewhere kind of logical, so I'll just modify center pivot, and we might just snap the pivot up on the x-axis. So if I just hover on the z-axis, press D and X, it'll just move the pivot point, keep it in the center, but snap to the grid on the z-axis only. So now I can rotate it, hold J for discrete rotate, and move it approximately where it should be, out in front of my funky little dude. And scale it on in. So, I haven't done a bad job. Looks pretty close. Probably need to adjust this if we were going to get things exact. I think that's pretty good at the moment. Okay, so that'll be the glasses. So just do a quick cleanup in here. So delete history, glasses. You can see it's got weird translate values and scale. I'm going to go here to modify freeze transformation, so they're all 0. So it's under modify freeze transformations. P plane is an extra plane I accidentally created. P cylinder is the nipple. And I might freeze the transformations on that as well and delete the history. Revolve surface seems to have quite the history, and that is Yum Yum Geo. And that's a leftover Bezier that we no longer need. So we could make teeth, we could make the hat, popcorn hat. So I'll make the popcorn hat, for example. So let's get my Yum Yum Geo, duplicate it, isolate it. We will see if we can sort of slide this along a little bit. So that'll be the brim of our hat, for example, there. So just get rid of this loop if I can. Delete. Grab this shell. Get rid of that as well. Delete. Grab that and grab that. Control right click to go to shell. which is a connected number of block of polygons. And then get out of ISO, grab this top edge here, scale that back out. That's roughly right. Move that up. Okay, that's our hat on. Just need to have it rotate slightly from its pivot point, which we can make the top of the head, hopefully. So just make it the top of the head. Good eye. So we'll make it the base down here. Okay, I'll just lower it in more. Okay, just so we get a nice tight fit. It's a bit too tight. Get some interpenetration. It's pretty good. Oh, I think it's pretty good. Look at our front view. Definitely too high. So still in object mode, which I've rotated, so it's fine, but I could put it in normals. Yeah. I can put some blobs of popcorn in there. So they could just be strange little spheres. Don't worry about that. You can put your own spheres in. But that's basically that's basically it. Now you've got plenty of options here to sort of modify him and maybe have a look at maybe adopting him to a couple of the other designs. Before we finish up though, let's get this lofted surface here. So I've got the Yum Yum Geo, Nipple glasses, Yum Yum Geo, which is popcorn, popcorn hat Geo, Nipple Geo. So you should always make sure your scenes are nice and neat. Dum dum dum. Now we need to mirror him, so I'm just going to go to, just do a quick save. So I go to mesh, just do this in one mode. I'll go to mesh and I'll go to mirror cut. Just go to attributes, polycut, tool settings. Let's move that mirror cut plane to 0 on the x-axis. Good. And then delete the history. Right click, assign the existing standard material Lambert to get rid of that green. I don't have a shader color on me. Get rid of this leftovers, and we'll have to rename this as Yum Yum Geo again. But he's mirrored, which is good. And then of course the next step would be to do UVs, which we might look at in another tutorial. Although he's pretty plain coloured, except for the inside of the mouth. Nipples easily duplicated, just Control G, puts the pivot point of the group at the center, and go to modify, edit, duplicate special, reset your settings, do negative scale on the x-axis, -1, and then let's pull the two nipples back out of their groups, just using middle mouse. Assign existing material Lambert. is not a happy nipple for some reason. Just delete its history. Have to reverse the normals. There we go. So there the normals were reversed. So every object has got imaginary perpendicular lines that say this face is rendered. Each face has got that. And if you have a look here under render stats, that's the normals being reversed, which is why it was coming up black. So to fix it, I went up to here to normals, I went to reverse. That's my nipple repaired. But again, it'll have negative scale here, so I'm just going to go to modify and freeze transformation. So this will be nipple now, and then fix that again. Delete all my type history. Okay, so that is nipple from character's point of view left, and nipple right. There's nothing stopping me actually joining all these things together, provided they all want to get smooth the same level. But just for neatness sake, we'll group it at the moment and just call it Yum Yum. Right, awesome.